Welcome to Musical Shenanigans, where the hottest, most insightful, and wittiest talk about music is rarely heard. This is episode 2 in our second illustrious season. Welcome aboard, find a seat, and be sure to strap in. Prepare yourself for a musical journey into the deepest depths of music, where we find all of the What? Oh, I'm out of time? Thank goodness. Well, with no further ado, here's Dave, Scott, me, and your mom. Praise Satan. Hey folks, welcome to Season 2, Episode 2. This is Corey.
And this is Dave.
And the second time's the charm, ladies and gentlemen. Take that however way you will.
It is. We'll talk about my salad later.
We talked about your salad in the first recording that got lost. Maybe that's a good thing.
Probably for the best.
Yeah, we just lost about 15 minutes of talking, folks, and had to start over because we had a little technical glitch. But hopefully we'll be more polished this time.
Correction for last week. This idiot, namely me, said the Los Lobos album was How Will Love Survive? And the real title is How Will the Wolf Survive?
For those of you keeping score at home, that's 2 shows in a row where Corey screwed up an album title. Last show it was Aquemini by Outkast, and now this.
Hey, let's see what I can do next time.
It's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, I mean, I get things confused very, very
Looks like next week we'll be talking about Pink Floyd's The Whale. Not familiar with that one.
The Whale?
One of the lesser-known works.
Yes.
Right up there with Umaguma.
I'm sure it's probably better than Umaguma.
Maybe so.
All right, so this week will be, as stated, Los Lobos, How Will the Wolf Survive? Against The Cure, Disintegration. And then in the second round, it will be Pretenders with their debut album, Pretenders, up against Janet Jackson's Control.
Sorry.
Wouldn't be the same without it.
No, it wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't.
That's why I had to do it.
My first name ain't Baby.
Ms. Jackson, if you're nasty.
Nasty! Anyway.
Nasty boys!
Yeah, I've got a really good one for this.
Oh, dear God.
My first name ain't Baby.
Did a lot
it's
of research.
Mahatma, Mr. Gandhi, if you're Namaste.
Well, all right.
All right. So we drew straws backstage, and in round 1, I will be defending Los Lobos first, and then Dave will step in to champion The Cure.
Which is a brave thing to do.
He is their white knight.
He is.
Yeah, I'm definitely alone in this room, I know.
That's all right. That's all right. Sometimes you got to be the unique one, Dave. It's like being the shrimp in a crab cocktail. Or
What?
Don't encourage him.
just run with it, man.
All right, Scott, you'll be deliberating.
I shall.
And I shall begin Los Lobos. That go with you?
Tell me their tale.
I shall beginneth
Elucidate
the tale of Los Lobos, and how will the wolf survive?
No one knows.
In the Rolling Stone Top 500, there are 8 albums in the Hispanic genre. Now, I am using Hispanic with air quotes because 6 of those are comprised of people from Colombia, Puerto Rican, and the rest are Mexican Americans. The remainder have their roots in Spain, so not quite Hispanic. Though I laud the efforts of Rolling Stone to make their list more colorful, bringing in, and rightly so, numerous R&B and hip-hop acts that have redefined the movement of music in the 21st century, the 8 albums are almost, well, actually they rather feel like an afterthought. 2 albums rank in the 300s, and the remainder rank in the mid to upper 400s. So yes, they do feel like filler of a genre that still resides at the core of American music. When we think of American music roots as everything from the Appalachians down along the Mississippi and out through the Delta, blues, jazz, R&B, bluegrass, gospel, country, etc., we don't think about what's west of that Mississippi River. Tejano music, also known as Tex-Mex, a true homogeneous American amalgamation of Mexican-American music mixed with Czech and German polka and waltz rhythms, and sometimes some Zydeco borrowed from the Louisiana Bayou. This is a deep-rooted genre that should not be nonchalantly tossed into the list because someone at the last minute realized they forgot to add them. Dating back to the early 70s and influenced by the hodgepodge culture stew that is Los Angeles, Los Lobos emerged, blending everything that was flowing in and out of Southern California. Rock, Tex-Mex, country, Zydeco, folk, R&B, blues, and traditional music from the Hispanic countries of the Western Hemisphere. Now, How Will the Wolf Survive is a good album, but I wouldn't say it's great or groundbreaking. The songs are solid and are a perfect introduction for anyone wanting to learn about other cultures' music. Sadly, it is their only entry into the top 500, and it's a lazy pick. Take a listen to the album Kiko, released some 8 years later when a more mature Los Lobos had time to really define their sound. Or the album The Neighborhood, featuring a song that even Robert Plant covered. Finally, in the vein of artists overlook, I recommend in this genre the Gypsy Kings, the Iguanas, Los Lonely Boys, and the Mavericks, to name but a few. Sure, I can appreciate that Rolling Stone remembered to add these bands, but the effort was well below the half-assed mark. And I yield.
Praise Satan.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with this. Like, they're a good, tight band. It is, in terms of an introduction to Tejano music, it's a good... I actually thought it was kind of interesting when you listen to this, you can almost hear the evolution, because if you listen to sort of the first several tracks on this, it sounds like straight up 50s rockabilly kind of stuff. Then there's a couple of tracks that are clearly Mexican influence, clearly have that Zydeco beat you talked about. And then right around the halfway point is where you start to see them sort of pulling those two halves together into their own style. And it's not bad. I mean, I'm not here to like slag all over Los Lobos. I like Los Lobos. It's just, to your point, it's not, if I'm picking the greatest 500 albums of all time, I have a hard time making the case on this one.
I would have picked one of their other albums.
Yeah.
Clearly a much more mature band that have really defined their sound at a later date.
I agree.
And with Los Lobos, I feel like their notoriety was sadly because they opened for U2 on the Joshua Tour, and they were part of that whole remake of La Bamba in the late 80s that, as you said in our previous recording that everyone missed, probably did better in the charts than the original Richie Valens version.
I wanna die in a plane crash. Da, 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 da. Sorry.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that La Bamba, it shot up the charts when that came out. I think it took everybody by surprise, including them. You know, the way things go, you hear about this great new band that you've never heard before. Oh my God, who is this? Oh, turns out they have an album out. And so everybody flocks to this album. This album sells a ton of copies. And I wouldn't be surprised if, to some degree, that influenced the Rolling Stone pick here. But album sales it's not unimportant, but it's a pretty trivial consideration, in my opinion, if you're trying to pick truly, quote-unquote, greatest albums.
And I'm sure a lot of people went out after the U2 tour and picked up some of their older catalog.
True. Yeah.
Probably.
So blame Bono for this, is what you're saying.
We can blame Bono for a lot of things.
I think The Edge was one of the contributors to the top 500.
Was he?
I think so. I read that somewhere.
Oh, you mean like in the panel that Rolling Stone used to actually pick these?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
That is interesting.
The other 8 artists, and I'll mention them real quick because picking one of the other 7 with a random generator may not bring them up. We've got Shakira with a 1998 album that's at 496. Selena with an album from 94 at 479. Daddy Yankee. An album from 2004, ranked at 473.
Hip-hop guy, I think, right? Mexican hip-hop.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Mexican hip-hop.
And he's king of the reggaeton, whatever that is, or reggaeton.
Oh, yeah, reggaeton, yeah.
Yep.
Narco hip-hop, wow.
Bad Bunny from...
Hey, now.
An album from 2018, ranking at 447. Santana is at 334 with their Abraxas album from 1970.
Good God.
That, to me, also feels like an afterthought with him.
That feels like a slight.
It does.
Yeah, out of all
really
the things
does.
you could have taken from Santana, yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
Rosalia, an album that came out in 2018 as well. It was actually the highest ranked album in this ethnicity genre, and she's from Spain. Oh, I'm sorry, I left out one. This Manu Chao, also born in Paris, and his family comes from northern Spain. So this was an album out in 98, but also something from the 400s. Scott, do you have anything on Los Lobos?
Well, I'll give you my vote.
Yeah, he'll deliver his opinion.
Well, no. I just want to know what you think of the album.
It was okay. It wasn't great. Meh.
All right, Dave.
All right.
I think you
should proceed. All right. So, if you go all the way back to Season 1, Episode 3 of this podcast, you can hear us talking about Frank Sinatra's 1955 album, In the Wee Small Hours. I knew I wasn't going to get past that without... I'm gonna start over as soon as he gathers himself.
It wasn't funny.
He gathers himself, I'm gonna start over.
No, but that was you said Frank Sinatra, and
I was talking about the actual one, not the one who lives in your head.
Dude, no.
Hey Pavlov, when you say Frank Sinatra, you know what happens.
Blue eyes. You know what?
Old
that
blue
does
something.
Anyway.
So, if you go all the way back to Season 1, Episode 3 of this podcast, you can hear us talking about Frank Sinatra's 1955 album, In the Wee Small Hours. It's considered by many to be the first ever concept album, with every song dealing with themes like loneliness, failed relationships, and depression. Scott wasn't really much of a fan of it, but as I said then, for me, there's no Frank like Melancholy Frank. Now, what made it appeal to me was its authenticity. It wasn't contrived. Sinatra actually battled with depression through most of his life, even attempting suicide on more than one occasion. He didn't write a single song on the album, but his own struggles gave his delivery such conviction you'd be forgiven for assuming that he had. Now, contrary to conventional wisdom, The Cure wasn't always dark. Yes, some of their work could be pretty bleak. But Friday I'm in Love is one of the poppiest songs ever made. Hell, Just Like Heaven inspired a Reese Witherspoon romantic comedy. Lead singer Robert Smith insists that his music has always reflected his mental state at any given point in time. When they released the pop-oriented Head in the Door in 1985, some called it a sellout, but Smith said, look, trying to sell records had nothing to do with it. I just felt good. But yes, they could also be dark. In the 80s and early 90s, they became the soundtrack of teen angst. The cliche of emo kids with jet black hair and dark clothing huddle for a smoke behind the gym. As he neared age 30, Robert Smith was, in fact, overtaken with depression. Looking around, he concluded that most artists who did bold, memorable work mostly did so before leaving their 20s, and he felt like his time was running out. So he sat down and penned the words for The Cure's 8th album, Disintegration. Now, to actually make the record, Smith opted for Hook End Studios in Oxfordshire. As he put it, we could have gone anywhere in the world, but I wanted to make something autumnal and English. I knew if we had the smell of burning wood and rotting leaves in the air, darkness by 4 p.m. and the likelihood of thunder and rain, well, it couldn't help but put us in the right mood to record. He was joking, of course, but the band actually swears that the recording sessions were actually quite upbeat. To quote one member, I'm sure people think we were sitting around slitting our wrists with candles and chains hanging from the walls. To say the session started badly, however, is a bit of an understatement. The first night, Smith's room caught on fire, nearly destroying his handwritten lyrics. Defying the staff, he ran back into the burning room to rescue the pages, many of which had already partially burned. Once the record was finished, the label felt like they had a failure on their hands. After their more upbeat Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Disintegration was dark and depressive. But they were wrong. Really wrong. Disintegration became The Cure's highest charting album, selling millions of copies. Yes, it's dark and brooding, at points almost crushingly so. But it's also filled with rich, lush, deeply layered instrumentation and poetic lyrics. And for some people, including those angsty teens, that darkness is actually comforting. According to the World Health Organization, 300 million people suffer from depression, many silently. As with a lot of mental health issues, there's a stigma that prevents people from talking about it, so it can be easy to feel like you're alone. But when Robert Smith opened up about what he was feeling, that dynamic changed. A reviewer with bipolar disorder put it this way: as a kid starting to go through long episodes of lethargy and hopelessness, it was a sound that synced up with my soul. I had no idea why I would alternate between periods of great overconfidence and elation and episodes of extreme depression, but deep down the music of The Cure resonated with my new internal discord. So yes, The Cure can be dark, this album especially, but that darkness resonates because it's honest and open and authentic. Just like there's no Frank like Melancholy Frank, for a lot of people, there's no Robert Smith like a brooding Robert Smith. And I yield.
Well said, well said.
I was actually sent an article that this album is part of a trilogy.
Like the Lord of the Rings?
A trilogy of albums beginning with Pornography, Disintegration's the second one, and ending with Blood Flowers. When Robert Smith wrote Pornography, he said, well, he was coming into his 20s. Well, he was just turning 21. When he wrote Disintegration, he was 29, going on 30. And with Blood Flowers, he was 39, going into 40s. So they're all transitory in times of his life. So leading up to Disintegration, he realized that the band had become everything he didn't want. They were a stadium rock band, and that was not something that he wanted. So when they went into Disintegration, and they're asking him about it, futuristically, he stated that it sounds really big-headed, but everyone wanted a piece of me. I got really depressed and started to do drugs again. Hallucinogenics, mostly. When we were gonna make the album, I decided I would be monk-like and not talk to anyone. It was a bit pretentious, really, looking back, but I actually wanted an environment that was slightly unpleasant. Now,
yeah, I can understand that.
When they did the reissue of Pornography, Smith said, I wanted to make the ultimate fuck-off record, and then The Cure would stop. Phil, their producer, was trying to make it too nice. I wanted it to be virtually unbearable.
Wow.
The statements kind of sound similar, don't they?
I read sort of a similar theory, and I actually thought this was where you were going with it, that, I mentioned that they weren't always like this. Like, some of their albums are actually downright upbeat. And there's another theory out there that Robert Smith doesn't really suffer from depression so much as bipolar disorder, and that those ups and downs of the album are actually because, like he said, it mirrors what he's feeling at the time, and that those ups and downs are reflective of what mode he's in at a given moment in time.
Praise Satan.
I was kind of surprised to find out that some of their earlier stuff is a little bit more prog than to be expected. I mean, some of these really long songs, I was like, if someone's not picking up this is prog, they're missing something.
Yeah, honestly, if I look at The Cure from a musician's point of view, the guitar playing on it is actually very good. The musicianship is top notch, and the songwriting's top notch. There's nothing wrong with that. Just the style isn't something that I personally enjoy, but hey, teach their own.
And with that style, I mean, they're easily the founders of the goth and new wave sounds.
Yeah,
I mean, those
definitely.
haunting layers of keyboards, almost with a symphonic sound, with the driving beats of the prominent bass lines, and some of them being with the synths. It defined a whole new genre of music. I mean, their direct influences can be heard, I would say, in Nine Inch Nails and the Smashing Pumpkins, to name a couple, where each took an element of The Cure. Like, one took the driving beats and one kind of took that driving guitar sound.
Right.
I mean, it is a sound that others definitely picked up on and went with.
It is.
That's hard to deny.
Yeah, and when I say Lush and Rich, I mean, just you listen to this through a set of headphones and it just fills up the headphones. There was so much going on these songs.
Oh yeah, with all the layers, like I said,
it
does feel like a symphony of them. Because there's so many layers and so much going on.
The guitar playing on Los Lobos is at once, it's exactly what I expected to hear. Whereas with The Cure, when I really listened to it, it was more like, okay, I never paid attention to that before. And there was a lot more going on than what I suspected. So it was nice to hear.
The guitar playing on this is really, I think minimalist is the wrong word, but it's definitely not the driving force of the album. He's using his instrument as one piece, and Corey, to use your metaphor, one player in a larger orchestra, and he's playing almost with that mentality that it's really an ensemble kind of composition.
Yeah, they wrote for the songs, not for the instrument.
Oh, speaking of the guitar playing, I didn't realize that when he put together The Cure, his job before that was he was the touring guitarist for Susie and the Banshees.
I had no idea.
No idea. Yeah, cool.
I didn't know that either.
Go Bob Smith.
I actually like a lot of the songs on this album. I mean, I understand that it's not for everybody. I actually like a lot of songs on this album. That being said, I will also concede that this is a hard album to sit through from start to finish. It is, most of the songs are very long. You're talking like tracks that are anywhere between 7, 8, 9 minutes long on average. Like that's not like they had one really long track on the album. The vast majority of them are that long. It can get dark and slow and plodding. Although one review I read interestingly said that some of those songs, the darker and more kind of like oppressive, it mirrors the way that if you have depression, that feeling like I just can't bring myself to get out of bed today. But it is hard to sit through and listen to in one straight take. I can listen to some of the individual tracks, but I don't think I'd go back and listen to this full thing from start to finish again. Honestly, by the time it was over, it's like, okay, even I came into it actually kind of liking The Cure, and even I want to slit my wrist by this point.
Wow.
It's not a bad album. It's really not. And as I said, there are so many other bands that clearly define their sound after listening to The Cure.
And on that point, one of the things I said when we announced Corey last time that we recorded, that this time we were going to be talking about this album, Scott kind of had this immediate reaction of not being too thrilled about it.
Myself included.
But I do know that when I think about other artists that have this sort of same dark, lush composition structure, there are other acts I can think of that I know Scott's a fan of, that I'm a fan of too, like Phantogram. And so I don't know how you sort of distinguish this from that, because I do think that Phantogram is probably the heir apparent to this type of music, basically.
I see the differences there. Well, mainly the female voice. And
yes, that's true.
She just, to me, she has a better voice.
Yeah, Sarah Barthel, or I don't know how you pronounce her last name.
Her singing is phenomenal, as opposed to Robert Smith, which is an acquired taste. I mean, he's like toothpaste on toast, and she's like, she's like a fine cheese on a cracker that goes well together. Yeah, he's toothpaste on toast, and that's man.
Yeah, his vocal style, it's credit where due, it's unique, but you always know when you're listening to Robert Smith singing.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes, you do, and that's okay. However, but Phantogram, they do have a lot of the same elements, though. You're absolutely right.
Corey, you mentioned your trilogy analogy and the prospect of aging. The other thing I'll say is the Robert Smith look, right? The rat's nest hair, the mascara, the lipstick. Credit to Robert Smith for sticking with it, man. He has not walked back for that one bit. He's 62 years old now. Now it kind of comes across like he's 62 years old. He's put on a ton of weight. He looks like your aunt from Boca who just can't accept that it's time to stop coloring the hair.
Let's be honest, he's fucking terrifying to look at now.
Yeah, it's a little much. But credit to his conviction. He's certainly not like a Bowie who reinvented himself with every album, man. He found something that worked for him and he just stuck with it from start to finish.
I'm gonna ride that motherfucker till it dies. Okay.
In fact, there's a lot of, I don't think Tim Burton has ever confirmed this, but there's a lot of speculation that Edward Scissorhands was modeled off of the Robert Smith look.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Johnny Depp or Robert Smith? What is it? Who is it? Who will win?
Who did it better?
Depp will play.
Who wore it best?
Johnny Depp will play Robert Smith in the biopic.
Toothpaste or mouthwash? What's it going to be, boys?
All right.
Well, those aren't bad options.
You say that now.
It just depends on what you're serving it on.
You don't want to know. I will go back. I will go back to my chambers and I will deliberate.
Okay.
The Los Lobos Wolf album and the Cure's Disintegrated album.
Scott will be right back after he enjoys his salad.
I'm going to go have a salad now.
Musical shenanigans! Do you like the music, lad?
Do you like podcasts?
Do you like expert analysis of music on podcasts?
Well, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And here it is, Musical Shenanigans. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. So far, we've bribed Apple, Amazon, and iHeart, to name a few.
And we have compromising pictures of the others.
Also, find us on Twitter at @M_shenanigan. Because Kanye follows us. Okay, maybe he doesn't.
And here we are yet again. Back once more with 3 people talking as opposed to just me.
Well,
you're supposed to be deliberating a verdict.
Deliberating. We're kind of giving you the floor.
Oh, sorry. I was like, why is everybody being so fucking quiet?
Waiting to hear what you had to say.
Anyway. Oh, right. Well, after careful deliberation over these 2 fine albums, Los Lobos, The Beating of the Wolves, or whatever it was called, to the Cure's Disintegration, I'm going to give the win to The Cure. Because, frankly, I really enjoyed that album more than the Los Lobos, which, honestly, I'd rather have my butthole plunged than listen to that again. Let's just be honest.
A laxative is much more effective than the plunger.
You say that. I'm just gonna say I'd rather have it plunged than have.
Is there a lot of rice in your diet?
Yeah, it's a fair amount. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I get a good amount of roughage. That's just saying. Anyway,
You get a lot of salad.
I do.
All right. Well, Los Lobos came in at number 431, and The Cure was at 116. So
You might debate whether The Cure belongs that high on the list, but Corey, back to your argument. Because Los Lobos felt like an afterthought here, 431 sounds just about right.
Yeah. Honestly, I would agree. All right. And
okay, so we'll take a break for the for whatever it is we're going to do here in the middle.
Hey guys, know what we haven't done in a while?
What haven't we done?
It's the Kanye report.
Holy fuck nuts!
God, I haven't been this excited since I accidentally set myself on fire.
Oh, and we have...
Oh, wait.
There's a lot going on. We have a veritable Kanye-copia of news for everybody. All right, so where do we start? Well, let's start here. So Kanye is apparently now in a full all-out war with Pete Davidson from Saturday Night Live. Pete Davidson, for those of you who don't know, has begun dating Kanye's ex, Kim Kardashian. I'm not a huge fan of the Kardashians, but I kind of pity her right now because Kanye is acting like just the total crazy ex-girlfriend. He released a song called Easy, where he sings about, or I guess raps about, Davidson. And at one point he talks about this car crash that he had back in 2002 and says, God saved me from that crash just so I could beat Pete Davidson's ass. Now, if we...
Wait.
Yeah.
This crash was 20 years
20
ago?
years
He's
ago.
going to go back that
20
far?
years ago.
Well, if it's all you got, it's all you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I was saved 20 years ago just to beat the ass of a man that my ex-wife is stuffing. Okay, all right.
Your ex-wife's got a wind tunnel between her legs, and that's fine. But, apparently Pete's the only man that's man enough to fill that wind tunnel.
There are rumors.
Milton Berle Jr.
To park his Stratoliner in there.
I'm going to start referring to my penis as Stratoliner now.
I'm waiting for that to be the next line of rockets in SpaceX. You're welcome, Elon.
Yeah,
It's better than my current name. I
Yeah.
currently refer to my penis as Macy Gray because it's got an afro and nobody's paid attention to it since 2001.
Oh my god.
Okay. Where was I?
Who knows?
So evidently,
we were talking about Pete Davidson.
You were feeling bad about not being Pete Davidson, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the song, and yeah, he talked about the car crash. But apparently that's not the least of it. Apparently Kanye has also been going around telling pretty much anybody that will listen that Pete Davidson has AIDS. Which
nice.
in addition to just being a shitty thing to do, it has apparently led to some really awkward moments for Pete because apparently he and Kanye have some mutual friends who have taken to picking up the phone and calling him saying, Kanye told us, is this true? And of course it's not true, or at least as far as we know.
I just imagine Kanye out on like every street corner. Hear ye, Pete Davidson has AIDS.
Or either that
Only
or
because
putting
he
up
would talk
flyers.
about himself in the third person.
Yeah, y'all caught that right. That's clever of me. I said, hear ye. Get it? My name's Ye. Get it? Get it?
And he would be the kind to like repeat that over and over to make sure like, yo
Hear
man, I said
ye.
hear ye.
Did you not hear me? I said, hear ye. So police are investigating a battery report that's been filed against Ye. The incident was spurred by a complaint that took place in downtown LA outside Soho West at a members-only downtown club that is popular with celebrities. And also, Kanye is now dating model and actress Julia Fox. In a January 13th podcast, Julia spoke about their relationship, saying, it's really such a Gemini-Aquarius connection.
Oh.
It's very inspirational.
Wait. Hold on.
Can you say it, Corey?
Aquemini.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Corey.
Aquemini.
Yes.
Kanye and Julia
if
Fox. Watch your back, Outcast.
Yeah, baby. Well, eventually Corey gets to say an album name right.
Well, I got to get one.
Once every 4
now and
episodes
then.
or so.
Right.
And then also, did you know that Kanye bought the house like right across the street?
Across the street from Kim, right.
Yeah, no, right across the street from Kim.
No, it's kind of old news.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Oh. Well, he's teaming up with his arch nemesis Drake. Did you hear about that?
Seriously, the Free Larry Hoover concert. That was last year, man.
Where are you getting your news from, man? Yahoo or Ask Jeeves? Jesus.
Okay. Kim says like there's like no amount of
counseling can fix that marriage. Dude, are you reading a newspaper, Alta Vista or some shit, or the Thanksgiving edition of Vibe magazine? What is it?
Well, all right, hold on.
Welcome. You've got mail.
All right. Hey, Donda 2's coming out.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's much better.
Donda 2, the building.
Yes, get your tickets for a listening party in an Oedipus complex near you.
What? Is he going to come out in his bank robbery outfit that's so, like, gimp chic?
Praise ye!
Yes, he gets medieval on his own ass. But not only that, he's got his buddy in the boob suit now, apparently helping him out in the studio.
Because we're all stars in the dope show, don't you know?
Yes, right.
Man, what could these two possibly have in common?
Pete
That's
Davidson,
it.
maybe.
That's the common friend.
That must be the connect. Yeah,
there we go.
I mean, maybe that's my guess. Is Brian hung out with Pete first, and maybe he's like, Pete, I'm gonna go hang with Ye and like work on his album with him.
So pretty much between like all the takes, Kanye stops, leans into the microphone, and goes, "Yo, Marilyn," or does he call him Brian? And go,
I don't
"Yo,
know.
That's a good question. Does he like it?
Yeah, right.
No, wait, you're raising a good question. Like we're off track with the Kanye report here, but like, what do Marilyn's friends call him? Do they call him Marilyn or do they call him Brian?
I know.
Is he Brian?
Or is he just Lynn?
Because when he was playing inside the South Florida club scene back in the early '90s, he was it was Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids, and they used to tour all over Florida and the South. And that was like kind of their shtick. They played with the Jenna Torturers and shit like that. And he was just some, emo bozo back then.
No, we were just talking about, let's get back on track here, talking about Donda 2. We were talking about that album. Apparently, Kanye is being as grandiose bullshit as ever because according to Digital Naz, who apparently is one of the producers on the album, I don't know who the fuck that is, but apparently he gave an interview where he said that Kanye decreed that among other things, every song that goes on the album has to be suitable to be played at a funeral, childbirth, graduation, and a wedding. The song has to work for, not just like it has to work at one of those. It has to work at all four of those, or it doesn't go on.
So, like every song that's going to be on this like 3-hour abortion is going to have to be able to be played at all of these events.
At a childbirth, yes.
That's what's all
3-hour
order.
abortion has to be suitable to a childbirth.
Kanye's looking to go to Australia, but Australia requires 2 shots of the vaccine for entry, and it's rather unclear what Ye has or does not have.
Yeah, he hasn't expressly said that he's not vaccinated, but he's made a couple of quotes that sort of strongly suggest he's not vaccinated. I guess on a podcast last month, he said he went to Paris a couple of weeks ago and he had to fly through Lisbon because you can go through Lisbon without being vaccinated. So take that for what you will.
What does he think he's in the fucking CIA now? He's like Chuck Barris. When I went to Paris, I went through Lisbon. They snuck me over the Pyrenees and into France.
It's a great movie, by the way. So apparently this is not, just real quick, this is not the only comment that Kanye has had on the vaccine. We also know that back in 2020, he said that vaccines were, quote, the mark of the beast, and that the vaccinations were an attempt to microchip people. So, again, take it for what you will, but strongly suggests.
Clearly, that is a good idea, putting microchips in a vaccine.
I mean, I would love to track where Kanye is at all times, frankly.
You know what?
It's like put a bell around his neck.
Bell the Ye.
Right?
I like
it.
Yeah. He may or may not be going to Australia because I don't think they are going to bring him in by boat. New Zealand's not going to let his ass in. Maybe
Kim would have left if he'd gone down under a few more times.
So it'd be like licking the sides of a pool.
Oh my god. Remember, folks, if you're into chocolates, liquor one, LIQUORWHAAAT.com.
Greenfield Beavers!
All right, well, so if it turns out he can't get into Australia, he does at least have one other trip planned. We don't know when, but he has announced that at some point he is planning on going to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin and also to look at some business opportunities. He says Russia is going to become his second home. There is a guy there, Aris Agalarov, who is sometimes referred to as the Trump of Russia, and his son, Emil, is his partner.
We apologize for the interruption. The Kanye report has experienced technical difficulties. Please stay in your seat with all arms and legs tucked snugly inside the vehicle at all times. For now, please enjoy round 2. Thank you.
All right, we are back. And for round 2, as Corey said at the opening, we are going to have the debut album by Pretenders, which is also titled Pretenders, squaring off against Control by Janet Jackson, which Scott will be talking about.
Well, it was decided via Russian roulette that I will go first.
Scott, anytime you are ready, please proceed.
Okay. All right. Sweet baby Satan, Janet Break My Pelvis Jackson, formerly known as El Taco, and the head of a lesser-known Colombian cocaine cartel called the E. coli Babies. Yes, Janet Jackson, that Janet Jackson. Who else could be that Janet Jackson? Could it have been that Janet Jackson? Well, for all her wardrobe malfunction, she is actually a creature from another galaxy. Her pasta was tasted in 3 different McDonald's, and everyone said it was not as bad as Michael's. Because really, come on, it's fucking Michael. Anyway, but blast the buggering beggars, behold the botched ablations, beware the Jabberwock, my son, her 3rd studio album, and yet her most extreme metal. Control represents a robot come to life and its presence in the world and how it chops everyone into tiny pieces. Originally entitled Robot Butcher, Janet fought for months with her then manager John McClane, hero of the Nakatomi Tower. In the end, though, yeah, I know. Okay. In the end, though, the album ended up being called Control because of her father being a manic psycho thing, and her hair was indeed the wrong shade of yellow. Anyway, shit pickles aside, Janet came back. She danced like a crack freak when her name was called on that October morning, and her glistening fangs were at once dripping with
I love the pause and the what. Oh, wait a minute, I missed a line, and now it doesn't make any sense.
He's like, wait, what the hell am I reading? Now you know how we feel.
Well, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely coherent up into that point.
I really don't know what happened at that point. Okay, everything.
You lost control.
We're going to stop and we're going to go back to that part. Okay. Janet came back and danced like a crack freak when her name was called out on that October morning, and her glistening fangs were at once dripping with venom while she insidiously moved in a sinuous manner and then deftly defecated on the desk of the Arby's manager. Yes, Janet was clearly now in control. Behold her volatile dreams of being a pink princess and exploding on contact with water. Don't believe the water when it tells you, bite the hot dog like it's alive! Janet, the giant Jumbo Jr. in jive, and like it's 1972. I yield.
Oh, that was the end. Okay.
El Taco.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you didn't take Los Lobos.
Yeah, aren't you?
Oh my God.
Just be glad. Yeah. There you go.
And if you don't defecate on the manager's desk, have you really even gone to Arby's?
This is true.
Does the manager even have a desk?
Well, I don't know. I've never been in the back room of an Arby's. I wouldn't know. But I'm guessing there's maybe some kind of a closet that they probably have a shelf with some paperwork on, and you could take a shit there.
So you'd have to get like a little step ladder to achieve this?
Well, maybe. I mean, depends on how...
I mean, not that I really want to know the
how
logistics.
How tall are you?
But, yeah.
The average man...
Do you have to hand deliver it up?
The average man shit on the Arby manager's desk? I don't know. Maybe.
All right. Bringing this back around, of the 4 albums we had to listen to this week, this was my favorite.
Wow, really? Yeah, wow.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes. Her Rhythm Nation 1814 is like one of those discs I have that I love that album. This is a sound that her 2 producers, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and I'll come back to in a minute, they make the keyboards and a lot of the primary instruments, they play them like drums.
Yes, that's
the syncopated synthesizers, the syncopated, keytars, they play like drums. And it drives the songs. And I mean, if you're not bopping along or wanting to dance, then you're dead.
Yeah, one of my observations too is that this is a very, if you're a percussionist especially, there's a hell of a rhythm on this album.
Oh yeah. And I mean, you can definitely hear future bands that then came up in the late 80s and 90s that all draw back to this.
Oh yeah.
But let me get back.
Wanted to put
Terry Jam and
inside
Terry
of her.
Lewis. So when I heard this, I'm immediately thinking Sheila E. Prince. Immediately. I mean, you could definitely feel that.
Comparison.
Well, you look it up. These two met in Minneapolis.
And they worked with the Revolution.
Yes, and they worked with Prince. They were in a band called The Time with Morris Day.
That
as well.
little band called The Time, yeah.
As I said, the sound here is rhythmically driven. It's a distinct sound that then brought us the 90s R&B. Boys to Men, Belle Biv DeVoe, and there's even a little bit in there that you can hear that Lenny Kravitz even picked up on. And I think a lot of the acts that then came in the 90s and after can all kind of point back to Janet. Now, going back to when we talked about Beyonce and the whole feminine empowerment, it's all right here.
Absolutely.
You listen to, What Have You Done For Me Lately? It's almost a callback to Aretha Franklin's Respect and a transition into more of that female independence. She's in control now.
Yeah.
What have you done for me lately, you son bitch? And she likes her boys nasty.
Yeah, What Have You Done For Me Lately, interestingly enough, it almost was not on this album. So Jimmy Jam and the other producer,
Terry Lewis.
Right.
So they had actually, working with her, they'd come up with that song. And they wanted to actually save it for their own record that they were planning on making later. And the record label said, nope, you got to at least offer it to her. If she turns it down, fine, but you got to at least offer it to her. Well, of course, she jumped all over it because it's an incredibly well-written song. And it became one of the big hit singles off this. Not that makes it unique, because there were a ton of big hit singles off of this album. And a hell of a lot of this album went into the charts.
It's very good, and there's a lot of dance involved in this. You can definitely feel that this was music meant to be danced to. And this was about the time that artists were incorporating dance into their music, especially in their videos.
I think or more like not wearing any pants too. Dance,
You
pants.
can actually do both of those things.
You could dance without pants.
That's right.
Men
Pants,
without,
pants,
and without
men
hats.
without hats, yeah.
Pants off, dance off. Absolutely.
Right. There you go. See?
Actually, it's funny though you say that, Corey, because there was one song in particular. I mean, this is like every album. It's not 100% gold. There's a low point on every album. There's a couple of them on this.
Oh, yes.
There's one song, You Can Be Mine, which I felt like was a low point. There was a nice little lead guitar bit in it towards the end, but it was a low point otherwise. And as I was listening to it, what went through my head is it seems like it was written more for danceability in a club than actually trying to be a song unto itself. The vocal is kind of limited, and then after the vocal cuts out, there's like 2 more minutes full of just like nothing but rhythm and instrumentation.
Wasn't her choreographer Paula Abdul?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was the other thing is you mentioned the dancing. The other thing about the dancing is this was not only sort of influencing what happened in music on an ongoing basis. She had a big influence on what happened in the world of music video on an ongoing basis. So she kind of put together a whole lot of these singles turned into these very highly produced, highly choreographed videos. And to your point, Paula Abdul was the choreographer on most of those. And it really kind of launched Paula Abdul's career as well as a result of that.
Straight up.
So what I was saying is I watched the Control video, and even with the guys with the guitars dancing together, it was very much like The Time.
I think.
They still had those movements. It was where the band was now more integrated into the choreography.
Yeah.
Anytime you can put a keytar into things, I think it just makes it a little cooler.
Scott, you mentioned the Super Bowl incident, right? Where they with the nipple.
Well, of course.
So there's for, I guess that's going back for like 17, 18 years now. So for folks who aren't familiar, Super Bowl halftime show, she's performing with Justin Timberlake. At the very end of the set, He reaches up, grabs, as she's wearing like a bustier, grabs like the top of her bustier, and the cup pulls off, and she's wearing a nipple shield over. And a ton of FCC complaints from people who were just absolutely horrified at the prospect that there might be a nipple on television. Huge fallout from that. The interesting thing about that is, I mean, first of all, it was such bullshit in the first place. People debated whether or not it was intentional or whether it was a quote-unquote wardrobe malfunction. Yeah, it was intentional. You don't walk around in a bustier with snap-away cups and wearing a nipple shield unless you're anticipating that thing's coming off at some point. But the interesting thing about the fallout was she took all of the blame for that, and Justin Timberlake just kind of like walked away scot-free. It didn't harm his career whatsoever. And it was really, in that regard, said something very awful, I think, about the way we think about not just female artists, but black female artists especially.
I think it's the way we think about women in general, honestly, because, I mean, it's like, oh my God, it's a nipple. Oh, it's a female nipple. Somehow that's, just the height of, oh no, we cannot have these things because no one will ever see these things. It is cruel and unusual punishment.
I think before the FCC, they should be handed a whole bunch of pictures of nipples and be like, okay, tell me which ones of these are female and which ones are male.
Right, exactly.
And we even, one of them's actually an orangutan too, just to throw your asses off. And they won't be able to name them.
No. All right, Nipplegate aside.
Nipplegate aside. What else? Do I have anything else to say about this album?
I had forgotten
Rice-A-Roni. It was the San Francisco
I really like
treat.
Janet Jackson.
Fair enough.
You can plug it into an AC socket, but you might not get what you expect. Sometimes orange soda comes out of a green can.
Scott's previewing next week's show.
Apparently.
I'm previewing something.
All right.
Okay, and nothing else to say. If we have nothing else to say about Miss Janet, if you're nasty, then we can go ahead and talk about Pretenders. And Corey, please feel free to proceed anytime you are ready.
All right. Make note, and since we may have covered it on this one or the previous recording, I'm not sure, so just going to say it again. Like the Eagles, that the word "the" is missing on their album covers. The same as with the Pretenders, or Pretenders. If you look on those album covers, you do not see the word "the." It would be remiss to talk about Pretenders without a respectful nod to the core of this band, Chrissie Hynde. She was instrumental in brokering most of the London punk scene, with bands that she tried to put together for herself, like The Damned. She was friends with the Sex Pistols. She played with members from The Clash. She was there for the start of all of that. Chrissie's rock and roll interactions also date back to before London, when living in Cleveland, when she actually drove David Bowie around and hung out with Iggy Pop. Now, I'm not sure if that was in Detroit that she drove to or if it was in Cleveland. It's still a little hazy because I read her autobiography in 2018, so it's not that clear. And what's even less clear is the time I actually did see the Pretenders play at the Tampa High Life Fronton in 1984 with my parents. End of story here is that she eventually found her mates and put the Pretenders together. As a debut album, you can hear a band searching for their sound that I think we would all agree they found and solidified come their third album, Learning to Crawl. This album and Pretenders 2 are solid albums to be reckoned with, but the sound that is this band that finally hits their mark does come on the third one. And honestly, Rolling Stone, if you're going to throw so many Kanyes at us, we deserve more Chrissie Hynde. Amen. This album, a stellar first outing, absolutely should be recognized. But given your propensity, Rolling Stone, for fangirling on artists and tossing in more of their albums, you really needed to include more of where this band matured to, honing and shaping their craft that has made this 2005 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee a staple in music history. And I yield.
Well said. Yeah. I mean, the Pretenders are one of those early bands that was around while rock and roll was kind of coalescing into what it would become, I think, from the 70s into the 80s. And
well, you can definitely hear a lot of the punk on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But she kind of veered from that and went, you know what? I've got a better style than that. And I mean, the Pretender songs are their style.
Definitely.
And a broader style. I mean, if you listen to this album start to finish, you mentioned the punk feel. The very first track, Precious, I wrote down in my notes, you can hear that they've got their feet firmly planted in their sort of punk roots. But then
Yes.
you get into the other songs and you hear a lot of different styles, and you realize that not only, most of which were Chrissie Hynde, because she was writing most of this stuff. Not only is she a very talented songwriter, she's a very versatile songwriter. She could write high quality songs in a lot of different styles.
Yeah, I think when you get to Brass and Pocket, you're really starting to feel this is their sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
That bass line that's carrying the melody, the strong drums that are no longer really driving like a punk song, but they're just I can't define it. I compared them to it's kind of that Pete Thomas sound, and you also hear Stuart Copeland do the same thing with the Police. It's that driving drum track that sounds so simple, and yet when you really listen to it, it's not.
Yeah.
It's very complex, and it's carrying the song. So between the bass player and that, I mean, it really helped define the Pretenders sound.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. The other, coming back to Chrissy's songwriting for a second, the other thing I think that sticks out with her is she's always been very, I mean, we just talked about the Nipplegate thing at the Super Bowl, right? And oh my God, the outrage that somebody actually saw a nipple on television. Chrissie Hynde, one of her trademarks is she's always been just totally blunt and forthright in talking about sex. And I don't know how much some of that has to do with her background. I mean, she had been victimized by sexual assault on multiple occasions when she was younger, including on this album, Tattooed Love Boys. Later in her memoirs, about 2016, I think, came out and admitted that song was actually when she was a teenager, and she was actually assaulted by a gang of bikers that basically took turns. But she deliberately wrote it vague because she didn't want to be that explicit about it, and she also likes writing songs where people have writing things in a way that people can sort of come up with their own interpretation, but to her, that's what that song was inspired by. Later on this album, Kid, I don't think I ever really knew this, but that song apparently is about a kid who's like a young boy discovering that his mother is working as a prostitute. So just over and over again, she's not afraid to address, sexual themes along with everything else in her writing.
Mommy, why did that man leave money on your dresser?
Yes, exactly.
No, she's always been brazen. She's always spoken her mind. That is who Chrissie Hynde is. And another fact was, she was actually present at Kent State when the shootings took place.
Damn.
It was a friend of hers boyfriend that was one of the victims.
Wow, double damn.
And that was about the time right after that she just said she moved to London.
Yeah.
She was done.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that she was in the front of the first incarnations of what ultimately became The Damned. I read that story too, and I learned something I didn't know, that when they were putting together that band, they were under the working name, before they changed The Damned, the name was Masters of the Backside, which sounds like a Scott joke, but that actually was their effect there.
Wow. That would have been a great name. Masters
Feels like
of the Backside.
I'm sure you can make a song
Feels
of
more
that.
like an album title than a band name, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to talk about, Pretenders? Any other points you would like to make?
I thought, double dildo, Janet Jackson, Chrissie Hynde, who would win?
Wait, are they fighting with the double dildo? Or is it double dildo the third contestant?
Did either of you ever see the video? Yeah, I can't believe this made me think of something. But did either of you see the video of her and Dave Navarro on stage at the Viper Club in LA like about 15 years ago?
No.
They were doing some like supergroup thing. So you had Dave Navarro of Jane's Addiction, and Chrissie Hynde was doing vocals, and she had not sobered up by that point. I think she's sober now, but she was still pretty much heavy duty alcoholic in those days. And in front of an entire crowd of people, she drops down to her knees and starts undoing his fly, and it was clear she was going to blow him on stage.
Nice.
Except that like he very quickly, like, he's trying to laugh it off, but he's pulling away from her and trying to like grab his pants back. And
wow.
But she's got the look on her face. You can tell like this isn't a bit. She is going to go through with this if he doesn't stop her.
Chrissy's a true rock and roll whore, and I can appreciate that because she wasn't afraid of what that meant. In fact, I think she was one of the originators of that the independent female punk artist who was like kind of the whole fuck you, we're gonna put the sex back in it, we are people too, and we do these things. And she was one of those people.
And Debbie Harry over here on our side of the pond.
Yes, exactly. All right.
Think,
All right, if we have nothing else, then we'll take a short break, and I will be right back to deliver my verdict.
Musical shenanigans! Do you like the music, lad?
do you like podcasts?
Do you like expert analysis of music on podcasts?
Well, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And here it is, Musical Shenanigans. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. So far, we've bribed Apple, Amazon, and iHeart, to name a few.
And we have compromising pictures of the others.
Musical Shenanigans. Whatever podcasts are sold. That's not how that works.
All right, so we are back. So Control by Janet Jackson versus the debut album of Pretenders. Okay, so here's the thing. I have not been a top 40 fan for a very long time. And honestly, albums like Control are largely part of the reason. A lot of pop music is, and has been for many years now, overproduced, simplistic, formulaic, based more about the artist's image than actual musical talent or execution. Certainly as a matter of personal taste, if I was going to sit down and listen to one of these two albums a second time, I'd probably hell of a lot more likely to sit down and listen to the Pretenders than Janet Jackson. But if we're looking for the greatest album of all time, there's a lot of other factors at play than just what I personally like. A lot of people bought the Pretenders album because of the Kinks cover, Stop Your Sobbin'. But once they got it home, as we just talked about, they learned that Chrissie Hynde was actually a hell of a songwriter, backed by a hell of a lot of skilled musicians with a very tight execution. But in terms of broader impact and influence, there's really not much you can point to about the Pretenders. I mean, they went on to become a great band, but what was their broader influence? Not much. On the other hand, Janet Jackson, Corey, you made the point, that influence is still evident today throughout pop music. You've got the continued choreography in videos, the way singers sing, the visual presentation. You got Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, certainly Paula Abdul. I mean, to a certain degree, even Michael Jackson's later work was influenced by what Janet did.
Sure.
So, is that good or bad? For music, personally, I think it's god-awful, but you can't deny that impact. And with that kind of scope and that kind of impact, as much as I hate to admit it, I've actually got a rule for Janet here.
See,
All right.
My defense was clearly well thought out.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. It was absolutely everything you said.
It was.
So
Never
we are
eating
in
at
a
Arby's
line.
again.
Bite the hot dog like it's alive.
Well, we are in a line again. The Pretenders came in at 152, and Janet Jackson came in at 111. And shamefully, there are no other Pretenders albums in the top 500.
Wow.
There are 2 other Janet Jacksons, and this one is the highest of the 3. And I would have put Rhythm Nation ahead of this one. But
Is
with
Rhythm
the
Rhythm
Pretenders?
Nation ahead of this one? Do we know?
No, it's below this
Oh,
one. This is the highest
wow.
one.
Yeah, I can believe that. I'd rather cut my nuts off with a brick than listen to Rhythm Nation.
It's a good album. I stand by that.
Okay.
But like I said before, I would have wholeheartedly expected other Pretenders albums on this list. If you're going to put this one, then God Almighty, you got to have Learning to Crawl.
Well, it's kind of like we said with Los Lobos, right? It's not only not one of the greatest albums, it's not even the greatest Los Lobos album, and I agree with you. The same thing case with the Pretenders here.
Yeah. All right.
It was almost like, there's Chrissie Hynde. Yeah, we got to throw them in.
Well, a lot of female artists were woefully underrepresented on the top 500. So
That's true.
It's true.
Okay, speaking of representation on the top 500, Corey, do we know our albums for the next episode?
Funny you should ask. I was just about to bring that up. Okay. And
sorry.
I didn't know we were starting little theme music before.
Yeah, go.
So I rolled this one. Since we happened to bring it up, it was very fortuitous that I did. So in round 1, it will be the Sex Pistols. Never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols.
Praise Satan.
Up against, and wait for it, Dr. John. Grease.
Are you fucking kidding
Gris,
me?
Gris.
Wow.
Round 2, and like I said, I'm rolling these by randomly.
Wow.
Prince, 1999.
Oh, nice.
Competing with Green Day, American Idiot.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Ooh. Now that's
That's a slugfest.
That I mean, honestly, this week we had 4 albums that it was kind of hard to get too excited about any of them. But man, next time makes up for it. Those are 4 good albums.
Prince and Green Day going to get down in a fucking good old fashioned knife fight.
Is it going to be real knives this time, or are we going to bring back the butter knives?
I'm thinking we just get out the good plasticware and let them have at it.
Send Dr. John in with a spork. Give him a fighting
Dr.
chance.
John seems like a spork sort of dude.
The late Dr. John. I think he just passed away like 2 years ago.
And I think that's pronounced Gree.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, but once again, Corey. Three.
Hey, there it is. I'm 3 for 3.
3 shows in a row. Corey mispronounces the album title.
Woo!
Hey, somebody's got to do something like that around here.
And Green Day with American Idiot.
There
you go. What year?
We have Princess
1922. What?
Yes, we have Princess. We have Princess $19.99.
Yes.
All right. Well, how badly can we fuck things up next time? I don't know.
Yep.
I guess we'll find out.
We will find out next time. In the interim, check us out on Twitter.
Oh yes, at @M_shenanigan.
Hey, and go beat your meat on the sidewalk, lad.
Follower spots on Twitter are going fast. Get them while you can.
Hey, and don't forget to subscribe. What
try
the
not
hell?
To shit on an Arby manager's desk.
Shameful plugging. Yeah, stay away from Arby's. It's just a good.
Is
good
Arby's
advice,
going to sue us
period.
now? I dare Arby's to sue us. Yeah.
Dude, I would take that kind of publicity all day long. All day
Fuck
long.
Yeah, gastrointestinal distress is Arby's trademark at this point.
I mean, is it horsey sauce? I mean, come on. It goes with the meat.
Oh, I got some horsey sauce for you, boy. Oh.
And with that, I think we'll stop right here. Frau Brucker.
I'm going to help my Uncle Jack off of a horse.
Oh, my God.
All right.
I'm Mr. Head.
Oh, Wilbur. Oh, that feels nice.
Tune in next time for musical shenanigans horseplay, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh. All right.
Yeah, exactly. We're speechless. That's our cue.
Bye.
Thank you all.
So long.
Right, go fuck yourselves.
Always a nice guy. Always. Okay, we can stop our recordings now.
Oh.
We thank you for your patience. Your patience means a lot to us. Just know it really does. So please continue to wait and stay securely with all arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. We do apologize for this inconvenience. And thank you for choosing Musical Shenanigans.